Hello, everybody. Tonight, we're going to have a really special show. Number one, it is the second in-person guest I've had on the Stories of Service podcast since living in Mississippi. But even more important, as I have with a lot of these shows, tonight we are going to talk about the due process system within the military. And today, I have Colonel retired Doug DeMaio. Doug, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So excited to do this show. It has been a long time coming. We've been in touch for many months. And it's one of those things where I've had so many people on who have had stories of wrongful termination, of not getting the due process within the military reserve. To have somebody of your rank, of your stature, who've done the things that you've done, it really means a lot to me that you took the time to do this. So welcome, everybody, to Stories of Service podcast. Ordinary people who do extraordinary work. I'm the host of Stories of Service, Teresa Carpenter, and this is my 200th episode of the Stories of Service podcast. So it's also another special moment just because of that. But before we get started, as I always do, I'm going to grab the mouse here in just a second. My husband's doing some sound checks at the moment, but I always introduce the show with an intro from my father, Charlie Pickard.
From the moment we're born and lock eyes with our parents, we are inspiring others. By showing up as a vessel of service, we not only help others, we help ourselves. Welcome to S.O.S, Stories of Service, hosted by Teresa Carpenter, here from ordinary people from all walks of life who have transformed their communities by performing extraordinary work.
And as I said, this is the Stories of Service podcast. And today I have with me Doug DeMaio. Doug's story is not just about personal resilience, it's a stark indictment of the administrative system within the military. And in this powerful episode, he's going to share his experience, expose systemic failures, and explain why transparency and accountability are crucial for restoring trust in armed forces. We're going to talk about the events that were leading to Doug's sudden dismissal from his most recent unit, his experience navigating the military administrative system, the emotional and professional toll of being silenced and sidelined, and why systemic reform is urgently needed, and how Doug continues to advocate for integrity and innovation in defense. He is currently the CEO of All Domain Solutions LLC Consulting and with the DoD industry leaders, academia, and integrating AI into military operations. A retired Air Force and Alabama Air National Guard officer, Doug has commanded at multiple levels, flew over 3,200 hours, including 500 in combat, and helped shape strategy in space warfare, AI, and multi-domain operations. He holds advanced degrees from Eisenhower School and SAMS and has authored influential work on defense, innovation, and strategy. Welcome again, Doug.
Thank you, Teresa.
And before we get started, I don't normally do this, but number one, I definitely want to say that the views, the opinions that are expressed in this podcast are those of the guest and the host, not on behalf of any other official entity other than ourselves. But if you're okay with this, what I really want to do is I'm going to read a very quick synopsis of what we're going to be talking about today. And then we're going to backtrack and we're going to go into a little bit of your backstory. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, but I want to say one thing first. Congratulations to you and your husband on an awesome Navy career. I know it's hard for you because I can feel it myself coming back. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, today was my official last day at work before I start my SkillBridge internship tomorrow. So very excited to be working with Chris Lamy from Chris K9 Coaching. He was a previous S.O.S guest, so very, very honored to have him on. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Like I said, we're going to go into a little bit of Doug's backstory, but this is why we're here. On February 13th, 2024, a federal judge ordered the Alabama National Guard to reinstate retired Colonel Douglas Cinco DeMaio as commander of the 187th Fighter Wing, Donnelly Field, Montgomery, Alabama. Colonel DeMaio, a 32-year United States Air Force combat veteran and F-16 fighter pilot, was illegally removed as commander from both his military and civilian capacities as a Title 32 military dual status technician by the Alabama National Guard Adjutant General, the TAG. Major General Cheryl Gordon, United States Army, retired. As confirmed by the judge's decisions, Colonel DeMaio is innocent of any and all misconduct and to date has never been given any justification or cause for his removal from command. On August 2nd, 2022, Colonel DeMaio was escorted to Major General Gordon's office under armed guard, where she removed him from his military position for cause and directed him to empty his office in front of his staff. She also barred Colonel DeMaio from all Alabama National Guard facilities, issued a gag order to 187th Fighter Wing personnel, filed an invalid removal for cause letter with the Inspector General, and released defamatory comments to national and local media. While Colonel DeMaio remained a drill status guardsman for another 10 months, Major General Gordon blocked his participation in military drill assemblies, denied him points, pay, and promotion opportunities, and willfully obstructed his right to compete for military employment with the National Guard Bureau, forcing him to retire on May 31st, 2023. On September 1st, 2022, Major General Gordon removed Colonel DeMaio from the GS-15 civil service position as Air Commander of the 187th Fighter Wing, also for cause, and denied him a federally mandated follow-on civil service position. On January 1st, 2023, Major General Gordon's tenure as TAG expired, relegating any decision she made after January 1st, 2023, invalid and illegal. On October 3rd, 2022, Colonel DeMaio appealed the Federal Merit Systems Protection Board, and on February 13th, 2023, the Merit Service Protection Board judge ordered the Alabama National Guard to reinstate him as the 187th Fighter Wing Air Commander. Now under the command of Major General David Pritchett, the Alabama National Guard filed a petition for review, claiming Colonel DeMaio could not be reinstated since he was retired. However, Colonel DeMaio filed a motion to dismiss because the Alabama National Guard blocked him from military employment, ignored the Merit Systems Protection Board judge's interim relief order, and failed to provide him with a follow-on civil service position required by federal law. And I know this is a mouthful, everyone, but this is just so important to just kind of say this up front, what the facts are at this point. On August 2nd, 2024, Colonel DeMaio filed an appeal with the Federal Office of Special Counsel for reprisal against him by the Alabama National Guard for reporting multiple violations of federal and state law and for filing an MSPB appeal. On March 25th, 2025, the Alabama National Guard ignored an additional MSPB order by failing to submit an updated petition for review. Currently, and this is what we're going to talk about, he is appealing directly to the Secretary of the Air Force, seeking to fully enforce the Merit Systems Protection Board order and restore him as a Title 32 military dual status technician commander of the 187th Fighter Wing from the date of his removal to present day. Current opportunity and timing exists to immediately reinstate him and to make his life whole. Welcome again, sir.
Thank you.
So first off, I want to ask, where were you born and raised, and what made you decide to join the Air Force?
Absolutely. Two quick things. I go by Cinco for
Right.
Cinco DeMaio. Even though it says Cinco DeMaio, I grew up DeMaio. That's what, so my dad makes sure we say, and I'll get to that in a second. We're from Italy, very obviously. So I wanted to just say as well, everything I say tonight has 100% proof behind it. I have every I dotted and T crossed, and I am innocent of any charges levied against me. So with that, we'll go into
so
where am I
first off,
from?
first off, I'm also playing around, guys, with two cameras tonight, so I'm gonna kind of switch over to Doug here, but or to Cinco. First off, where were you born and raised, and what made you decide to join the Air Force?
Absolutely. Born in Morristown, New Jersey, and I am the great-grandson of Italian immigrants, came from Bari and Benevento, Italy, and moved to North Jersey. And then my mom's side, my grandfather's family has been here since the 1640s, French Huguenots. And then her mother came from Germany, so I am purely from immigrants. And
That's
so I got
awesome.
French,
I love
Italian, and German, so a passionate perfectionist, just get the job done kind of guy. And that's the way I grew up. My great-grandmother on the Italian side, she impressed upon me to continue to do the things in life that we know we have to do. And whenever tough times would come along, she'd say, hey, keep a go.
I love it. I
Keep
love
a
it.
go.
Yeah, that's
She'd
what
look
you
at
have to
me
do.
with those eyes,
Mhm.
and it looked right into your soul. So I grew up loving this country for what it gave to my family.
Mhm.
And there's a picture I have of New York Harbor.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at it, there's Ellis Island, there's Statue of Liberty, and my grandfather, my mom's father,
Mhm.
worked over in Brooklyn. and loading ships. And if you look over to the Jersey side, that's where I live, about 40 miles outside of New York City. By the way, I'm a in-the-womb Yankee fan. So second thing is that airplane flight is the French Patrouille de France. And I had a really honorable experience bringing them in to the United States, flying over the Statue of Liberty for the first time in 31 years in 2017 air show at Maxwell Air Force Base. So this is how I grew up. Love of country. I always wanted to fly. Ever since I can remember, I had an airplane in my hands, and I would fly it around the house pretending that I was, in it. I just always wanted to do it. This is what I always wanted. I never had a memory of not wanting to fly an airplane. So went through high school, and my grandfather, I said, I want to go to the Navy. Top Gun came out in 1986, right?
Everybody thinks of that when they say fighter pilot. Yep, Navy, Top Gun.
Absolutely. And of course, all the spots were gone, quote unquote, at the time. And my grandfather looks at me one day. He says, "Doug, do you want to fly airplanes?" I go, "Yeah." He said, "Go into the Air Force." I'm like, okay. So I put in, and I played lacrosse at the Air Force, and that helped me get in. And I have been loving it ever since. And I met the love of my life, Bobby, here not only a few years after I got into the Air Force. We were married when I was 25.
Wow.
So I have 2 children, Tori and David, and they are awesome. Love them.
And you've been all over in your career. I mean, you were in 3 decades. What were some of the most memorable tours that you had, and why?
The most memorable tours I have had are in combat in Iraq. And I spent 5 tours there, some of them in Saudi on a shorter side, but 2 of them directly in Iraq in 2008, 2010. The time that I spent working with Navy SEALs, with Special Forces, Rangers, etc., those were the best times because I felt directly connected to that mission and having it succeed. By the time we were done in 2010, we were talking about this earlier, we were the only aircraft in Iraq. And we were loaded for bear. We're flying 24/7. And we had 20 F-16s, and that's it. And we were basically Iraq's air power. It was really neat. That is a great memory. Other memories I've had, great memories, flying with the Taiwan Air Force pilots at the 21st Fighter Squadron at Luke Air Force Base, teaching them how to fly the F-16. That airplane, the Block 20 F-16, is the best one I ever flew because we could really move the nose around. I could keep track with an F-18, which was great.
So is the fighter community in the Air Force kind of like the Navy, where it's sort of the cream of the crop, like the top people who graduate from flight school are the ones that go on and become fighter pilots?
That's a great question. I would say they're the ones that want to do it the most. Some people are great pilots, and they just are not drawn towards that.
Sure.
Right? So it's hard to say, but the people who fly fighters want to be there.
Right.
And that's what I know.
Right. No, I hear you. Did you do any disassociated tours during your time in?
I did. I was, dissociated. I would say my 2 years at Fort Leavenworth, not in jail, was at school, so Command and General Staff College, and then went to the School of Advanced Military Studies. Those 2 years were very formative, and there's a little backstory on that. I had been in the Jersey Guard for a little while, and that was a rough time.
Right.
Came out of there and went to school, and I really found myself again, and got into the study and really focused on maneuver warfare, which continues to this day, getting into AI and wargaming and drones. That's the kind of stuff I'm into now. Sam's taught me a lot. My intellectual background belongs in the Army and maneuver warfare with John Boyd and Vastashega, who started SAM. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the thing, like, I find so much with a lot of these stories that we do, and some of the things that we're going to talk about, some of the harder issues, is that I truly do believe, and I've become much more faith-oriented, I think, even recently, that God sometimes gives the most challenging things that happen in people's lives to some of the strongest people. And your story is no different. Tell me a little bit about, because we're going to go into this story, but then there's also another story that might lead into where you ended up here. So give me a little bit of the backstory on not this story, but another challenge that you faced even before this happened that I would even argue helped prepare you for this.
I would absolutely say that. And I think you're right when you say God gives you things to prepare you in your life. Our life is about a relationship with him. And if we're not challenged, we're not going to grow.
Right.
So there's been a lot of growth opportunities, and you've had them too. So here's the preparatory. One was at Shaw Air Force Base in 2010. I had gone to combat, had taken a young lady with us, and she was at the front desk, we call them the squadron, of the squadron, doing the scheduling. I mean, they got their pulse of the squadron. And she could not go because her husband was deployed all the time. She came to me and said, "Sir, I can't go." And I said, "No problem. We'll go get one of the other people that I knew very well, had become friends with." So we brought this young lady with us, and her name is Jennifer. And it was pretty good deployment from all that I could see. Well, we left, and on the way, and this is all, the reason I can talk about this is this is all out in the public. She had a medical condition, and she was on Advon. They got to Joint Base Balad about a week to 2 weeks, I think it was about 10 days before us. I show up, and I'd heard along the way that she had some kind of issue. And I said, when I get there, and we're talking, we'll get you to Landstuhl. And we did. Landed within 24 hours. We had her on an airplane. She went. We took care of the problem. She came back. And that tour that's really about it. I knew nothing other than that. The tour went very well. We closed out air power down to one squadron in Iraq. Came home, changed command. I go off to school, and then I go off to Italy. It's supposed to be my dream assignment. I pin on Colonel, and 2 months later, I get a notice that, "Hey, Cinco, you need to look at the news." So I did. I called it up. Sure enough, this young lady had placed a complaint against the entire operations group for not just me and my squadron, but she happened to be in my squadron, for some things that she found not healthy in the unit.
Right. Some things that were she would suggest, like, people were consuming sexually explicit material. She was saying she was experiencing harassment.
That's right.
And I don't really recall what her specific complaints were towards you. It was more of a group thing that needed to be investigated. And so they launched an investigation, correct?
That's right. This was part of the beginning of and I say this with all respect, the Me Too movement. This was part of the accountability of things that we probably had found in the Air Force, the Navy, et cetera, maybe not palatable at some point. The tides were changing, and that's okay. But I would just say, don't hold people accountable for things that happened years ago with today's standards. We have to watch out for that, right? At least very much consider that. So we get back, and like I said, I go off to school, and the charges are, like you said, alcohol in the squadron, and then we had some material that she claimed was being looked at, and also that I released medical information.
That's right. That was the other one.
Yeah, that's the other one. So I was devastated. I mean, my career's over. I'm thinking I'm going to move on to be a vice wing commander, an ops group commander, potentially, depending on the selection board. And so I just really couldn't believe it. I mean, I have a unit to command over there. It was an air operations center. I'm in charge of 30 Americans and another 50 or 60 people in NATO. And I have to deal with this as well. It's devastating.
And you had no idea at the time that she had this complaint, like,
right.
while it was happening. That's what I'm getting at. Like, in the moment, if she sees something and says something, it didn't, in the moment, ADMAT deployment did not make it up to you at that point.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So this is all after the fact.
Exactly right. It's 2 years later. And the investigation involved 200 people. And there were 16 of my comrades that were involved in this. And as we went along, I tried to get others to fight this as well, because some of the things we're saying were just absolutely not right. And I was the only one that decided to take up the mantle. I'm like, I'm doing it. And no one else will go with me. It was really pretty incredible. And this happened, again, in Italy. I went through that whole assignment, and then I finally interviewed with the investigating officer, who was my boss to start with, and that wasn't acceptable. So then the Air Force said, you need to interview with ours. Okay, and then the 3 charges were substantiated. USAFE commander writes me a letter of admonishment, and I'm back off to the United States. I come to Maxwell Air Force Base, And my boss there, extremely gracious, says, Cinco, I know why you're here. I picked you to be in this job. I want you to fix the Air Force as far as multi-domain operations. And if you're not trying to get me fired every day,
then
you're
not
wrong.
doing your job.
And I'm like, I landed in the right place. He said, God's going to be with you. And he was.
Yeah.
He was.
So looking back, do you think that this one person had some kind of a vendetta, or do you think that there was something there that made her do what she did?
Good question. Before I left the base, Shaw, and I was friends with her, she said, worried about her promotion. And I had written 8 different awards for her that year, and because she earned it. She was a really good troop. Wrote her a really good fit rep, as you say in Navy.
Yep.
And she did a great job. And I was like, she's going to get promoted. Well,
Sure.
She said to me, if I don't get promoted, I'm going to bring things up that have happened to me in the past. And I said, well, is there anything here? And she didn't answer me. But I think there were things, as we've read now, it's all out in public. There were things in her career that I really wish she had brought up before.
During the time that this was occurring.
Excellent.
And for all we know, maybe she did, but it just never made it up to your level.
Very true. Very true. And I would have helped her. So that all happened, and this stuck with me, and it took me, Teresa, 7 years to get through, to the point where we would go through and get it to a certain point, and the Air Force would say no, they deny it again and again and again. What we ended up doing is my boss actually went to the command level, and he opened up another command-directed investigation and reinvestigated the issue and cleared me. And then it went up to the Air Force, and the Air Force said, no, you can't do that. They changed the language so that one of the, and as I know, I'm working for a foundation right now that deals with this, whistleblowers. They actually can do that. They can change wording to make it stick. So what we had to do was go to the initial issuing authority. Exactly. We had to go to the initial issuing authority to get that person to sign off, send it back, and then I sent you the letter earlier. I'm fully exonerated.
Where you're fully exonerated.
And so that leads into the next story. Because I'm exonerated, then I can move on to be a wing commander.
Right, and you would have never had the wing commander job if this hadn't happened.
Exactly.
And we do have a few people who have joined us today. We have Admiral Davis. He's watching, and he says, I worked with Cinco at Air University, Maxwell Air Force Base. He is one of the finest officers I've ever worked with. He was treated horribly in Alabama. This is a pattern and practice here. So thank you, Admiral Davis. So I think now we're just going to really just dive right into this case. And this is really how you and I met. I believe that you followed me on LinkedIn, and we've known each other now for like 2 years, I think. It's been a while.
Exactly.
And been in touch. And I remember in fact, you were the one who told me which month to retire. I didn't end up retiring on that perfect month. Events changed in my life to make me retire when I did. But I remember that was one of the first pieces of advice that you gave me. And I remember I was talking to you in the parking lot at NATO in London.
Yes.
I was still in London the first time we had a conversation. Absolutely. So let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about that tour.
So I retired out of Maxwell in 2020, September 1st, 2020. The idea that I would retain my retirement, which having experienced some time with another guard unit, I said, you never know what's going to happen. So I said, let's go ahead and keep what my gains that I have right now. It's important, right, to consolidate that. And I had the option to do it in a program called indispensability. It's actually via federal law. So it was a program that said you can retire and then come back in, which is exactly what I did. And I came back in as a Title 32 dual status technician about 2 months later. Craziness, I had my retirement ceremony and my swearing in the same ceremony.
That's like the crazy thing about this dual status guard. I mean, you guys have just all these different ways of doing things. I mean, Andy Lindstrom, one who I had on my podcast a few weeks ago, he was a state employee, but then he was also a guardsman. So there's all different ways in which we can serve, which I find really, really fascinating. So you're at this job and you're kind of serving two different roles, right?
Right. Except this. Normally what happens is, and I'm going to make this really fast. This is very confusing. And trust me, there's like 50 laws that cover all of this. But it goes, if you're dual status, you are a civilian. So I was a GS-15 unless I am on orders, period. So I am always, and this is really key for what I'm going to talk about later, I am always a civilian, period, dot. Now, how they used to do it is you would be a civilian and then you'd have to go do your military job. But the problem is you couldn't do both of them together and be a military commander. This way, they put them together, chocolate and peanut butter, came up with a kind of Reese's cup, and that's how they worked it. And so I could do it. So I took command on the 5th of May. Yes, 5th of May in 2021, Cinco DeMaio. And
Oh, I didn't even get that.
That's right.
All right, got it.
So right away, we started to work. And the work was this. We were going to transition to strategic competition, bring in the F-35, and make our people what we call multi-capable. So that if we only, and the Navy's used to this, right? And the Marines are used to this. Because you only have small contingents, you got to use all the people that you have. And they got to do multiple tasks.
Yep.
Right? So we're going to do what these little island hopping campaigns called Agile Combat and Employment, where we go from island to island. And sure enough, we're going to get the best F-35 on the planet. It's the Block 4 with called the Tech Refresh 3. It's the best F-35 that's out there, right off the assembly line. That's the plan. So how do we get this airplane to do this operation? So I had written a lot about this and worked with General Brown, or his people, I should say, and followed him very closely with Accelerate, Change, or Lose. And I took that to heart. I'm like, all right, boss, I'm going to do it. So we brought it into the wing, sold the plan, made a video about it, and went around to every single airman that I could. I probably shook 800 hands in that wing, just personally talking to them, looking in their eyes, and just saying, this is what we're going to do. Do you get it? Yeah, yes, sir, got it. And I believe we had a mandate from just the folks accepting this mission. They were, you asked them.
They knew. If
They
you
did.
went around and talked to everybody about it and you said, this is what we're going to do, and everybody was bought in, that's
It was great.
That's beautiful.
It was really neat. So then also COVID hit. So now we're locked down. So how do I do all of this and do this together, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens with COVID is everything doubles in price. So now we have to figure out how to pay for these buildings that if they don't get finished during COVID without people there.
Oh, gosh.
So then we started
That's
to
just crazy,
yeah.
crazy.
So with the concurrence of the TAG, General Gordon, we approached Senator Shelby's office and then Senator Tuberville, and they gave us the money. They got the money put in the NDAA so that we could finish. It's upwards of $50 million to finish the buildings that we needed.
That's wonderful.
And that created a lot of energy in the community. And perhaps, as I look back, perhaps too much, right? For a unit that's probably used to being a little quieter and less vocal, I should say, or on the front lines, right? So that I'm creating some energy because, in my opinion, our top adversary, China, is going to be ready 27, right? And that's still on track to happen right now. Nothing has changed. Get into the COVID timeframe, and I think this is where I kind of ran into a little bit of trouble. You have multiple lines of communications / authority in the state. You got the governor with Title 32, and she did not put out a mandate, you will get your shot, right? That did not come from the Title 32 side because the federal side had already mandated it. The SecDef had said, you're going to get your shots, okay? Copy that. Understood. Now it has to go through official channels, which is the Secretary of the Air Force, because the issue that I saw when my airmen got to the line, they were going to have some kind of medical and religious exemption. And if they got on the line and they refused, I would have to punish them, probably with a letter of reprimand or even removal, Article 15. I wasn't going to do that because I already knew that people were going to refuse.
Right.
And because they had the right to do that.
They do have the right.
So because I waited an extra 3 weeks or so, and I've got the entire timeline down of what happened, I incurred a bit of the wrath of our previous medical group commander had been promoted to the deputy tag, as it were, basically the air commander. And I think that kind of put a damper on communication because I clearly expressed what I wanted to do, and I think we just didn't agree. But I'll tell you, I was not going to put my airmen on the line that wanted to have an exemption, that couldn't. I was not going to do it.
You were going to follow the law.
That's right.
And there were a lot of people, sadly, during COVID who didn't follow the law.
Exactly.
And who punished people unfairly. And now we're seeing this current administration having to rectify those decisions.
Exactly.
But at the time, you were paying the price for trying to follow what was clearly the law and what was clearly in people's rights
That's right.
to do. So as you're moving along, you're starting to probably see that maybe you're sort of caught in some of these politics and some of this drama that's
right.
going on in Alabama, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So now I've got attention for bringing the wing up to
Right.
visibility. Then we got COVID, and then we started to do these agile combat exercises involving folks outside the wing, and we ended up involving dozens of units, and we went down to actually this area, and we deployed down here twice.
Wow.
And then we had a agile combat employment exercise from Air Combat Command. This is the first of its kind. It took me 6 months to get approval, and we had to draw it all out. And here's what I did. I gave them a mission type orders to the wing. I said, this is what we're doing. And I said, go figure it out. And I think that caused some consternation as well. Like, here's this guy, who is this guy coming in and doing it? But I was serious. I wanted to get us ready. This is not just going to be lip service, because as I'm looking out, I mean, you just check the scoreboard right now with China. Like, we're still on track with what we talked about. So I'm creating a lot of energy. And I believe at that point, there were some folks in the wing that perhaps I have been told were getting a little bit jealous of the things we were doing. I was also moving very ahead with our chief, far ahead with getting fair promotion procedures, things that had been maybe not as transparent before. Now we're having boards, a lot of change in a short period of time that I thought was needed and part of the mission. That I had grown up in the Air Force for 30 years. I'd done these things, right? And like, these are expected things. And people, the feedback I got, in fact, if you ask folks out in the audience, they're going to tell you, a lot of them, hey, he was spot on. Maybe some of them didn't like it, but the feedback I got was very good from the rank and file. So I started to feel a little crunched in. And I have to say, I did not expect what was happening that was coming. It was June of 2022. We had made it through our inspection. We did very well with our agile combat exercise. And I have it sitting right here. I have my performance report. And I'm ranked in the state. It's an excellent performance report. This is written from my boss. And this is 3 months before I'm removed.
And it's basically saying 3 months before you're removed, hey, I'm this outstanding commanding officer. I'm doing everything right. Okay.
Here it is.
Here
so
it
I'm like,
is.
I had no reason
to
believe that I was in trouble. I could feel some things not going right. I felt as though I was talking with the folks appropriately and the people on my wing, my peers, etc. Things seemed to be calming down a little bit. But underneath was this plan. And I think in guard units, sometimes you'll see this, probably with other places too, that the folks that have been there a long time kind of expect to be the next person. And here's this guy off of active duty coming in. Who are you?
Yeah.
Right? And I think there was a lot of that. And somehow ran afoul, looking back, of General Gordon. I go on leave in July. It's almost 3 years ago now. In July of 2021, I get called and I have the text. It says, show up at my office on Tuesday, 2nd of August. And I'm with my parents at home. And it's my dad's birthday in New Jersey. And so I remember this clearly. I have a desk. It's in my office right now, and this desk will forever remind me of this. I loaded this desk up. I bought it in Vermont. It's a beautiful desk. It is awesome. And handmade, solid wood. I load it up, drive all the way back, go to my office. I grab everything I can out of there just because I have a feeling what's happening. Sure enough, the next day I come in. I go to the comm squadron, and the guys are in shock. They're looking at me like, "Oh, sir, you shouldn't be here." And then I knew. Then I drove from there over to Joint Force headquarters, met by 2 armed guards, go up to her office. They're all wearing masks. There's like 5 of them at the table. Then I'm removed. Interestingly, I'm removed as a military member and not the status that I am in, which is civilian, to the point where they signed my time card that I was a civilian. So they already knew or should have known that I was a civilian, and what they did was completely illegal. So they removed me militarily, which they thought would trigger a removal 30 days later in the civilian side. Now, normally you could do that if somebody is in a military status. You can say, you know what? It's not working out. We're moving you militarily. It's your end of tour. Your time in the guard has run out. Then you run out. Now, even if you do that by federal law, 10 USC 10-218, they are supposed to give me a provide me a follow-on civil service job, which they never did. So they had the law completely backwards to the point where, like, and again, here I am in a situation where devastating, right? I've already been through this, but I learned. I started gathering, and I had been gathering a lot of evidence and keeping a lot of things. So I went and found, someone actually recommended an attorney for me that was up in Birmingham, met with him, and he said, you know, I think we can do this because the law has changed. Up until 2016, you would not have been able to appeal from a guard position to the Secretary of the Air Force. But the law changed, allowing guardsmen to do this. So I did. So we got this in, and about 30 days later, we got a response back. Yes, the Merit System Protection Board has jurisdiction over your case through the Secretary of the Air Force. And now we're cooking.
Okay, so now you say, okay, I have a process. I mean, that's what that tells me. Okay,
right.
Hey, we have a process. We can start to look at this case from the Merit Systems Protection Board process. Okay,
that's right.
And so, how does that start to play out?
So then I noticed that there was a delay, deny, dispel truth, and stretch this thing out as long as we could, because Colonel DeMaio actually has 10 more months of military time. So let's make sure that he has to retire. So I actually did not have to retire militarily until 31 May of 2023. No, sorry, 2022.
And that was why? Because that was your like statutory or
mandatory separation date.
Okay.
Yeah. So I still had another 10 months. So I noticed these things started to get really stretched out. So in the meantime, I didn't just sit around.
Sure.
I started to apply for jobs because I'm not that kind of guy, right? I go.
So you start to find more
right.
civilian jobs.
That's right. So, well, actually, military in the National Guard Bureau, there was a 2-star that asked for me to do space work. So I applied, and because General Gordon still had authority over me militarily, she denied me the ability to go take this job. And I would say that is absolutely retaliation. In addition, I was barred from going to drill in the state. I was not provided any drill pay or option or ability to do my job. I was barred from any base. I could not show up on any Alabama Guard base at all. And there was an article published on me about 10 days after I was fired with Task and Purpose, who never talked to me or gave me the opportunity to respond. And this happened the same way with my case at Shaw. Okay, things get published out there and put out in the press, and these publications don't come to the member and ask them what really happened. They just put it out there.
They just put it out.
Assume that the military higher level is correct. Sorry.
And you had no idea that this article in Task and Purpose was going to come out.
No, because I was told in my meeting with General Gordon that she wouldn't do it. And sure enough, and there it is.
That's just, number one, that's dishonest. And then number two, that is the problem with a lot of these firings, that it's a side to this that I had never truly considered, is that when you say somebody is fired, as a media person myself, now it doesn't matter that you might get cleared later on. All that matters is that if a future employer Googles you, they're going to see, oh, Doug DeMaio fired. Yes. And there's no opportunity for you to get in your side of the story unless you do something like this later on.
That's right.
But in the moment, you're just trying to put your head above water and get through what you were trying to get through. And that's probably a really good time, too, to even talk to your wife, Bobby. I know she's listening in the other room. So if she would like to come around and come in here, we can have her come sit with you and talk a little bit about how this impacted her as well. So she's free to come in at any time and do that. But we'll keep on going. What happens at this point? You've got those 10 months, and there she is.
There she is.
She's going to come in and hopefully get my dog out of the way. Because I want to really bring home a point here, and this will be a question now for Bobby. So, Bobby, have a seat. We can bring you in. I can see, there you are. So, Bobby, tell me a little bit about how this incident, when it happened, impacted you and your family.
So, the first incident, when we were in Italy, it was just such a pleasure to be there, and should have been the time of our lives. And it just really was heartbreaking. I've known Doug for 32 years, and we've been married for 30 of them. And I don't know a more patriotic person than Doug DeMaio. Comes from a long line of patriots. I love his family, and so it was especially hurtful to see him just dedicate such dedication and passion for what he does. We've dedicated our lives to this. I've made many excuses to our kids as to why Dad works so much, and it's honestly it was easier during a deployment to have him gone so we could just like adjust our lives and to see him there on the other side of the door working, because he put in so many hours just as a military officer, the hours you put in doing that full-time job. And then there was a second full-time job of defending himself. So he would defend the nation, and then he would defend himself. And he spent many hours when the rest of us were sleeping, when we were driving to on a vacation or a TDY, he was working. He was going through hours and hours of interviews, evidence, whatever, just trying to piece this all together to defend himself. And he's never been given his day in court, you know, to really, like you said, defend yourself. But you mentioned earlier God and faith, and I've really seen such a difference in him, and his faith has really grown through this to the point where, we're not so sad that it happened, because we're in a good place, and God has been faithful. And it's awesome to be able to help other people,
right?
And to share our story and to share our faith with others. So,
and the procedure for redress should not be this way. Doug works for and I'll say the name, and they're a great organization, Walk the Talk Foundation. Doug, you're working with them now, and you hear stories about so many others who are being impacted by this. Is that the case?
You wouldn't believe how many people are going through this. It's breathtaking how many that are out there. I thought I was the only one. Like, this would be a 60 minutes story. Well, Megyn Kelly story, right?
Right.
Whatever the case is, which I follow Megyn Kelly a lot.
Oh, we love Megyn Kelly.
She's awesome.
I'm also a fan.
Great. And so I was thinking, all right, she's going to take it. But you know what? This, I hate to say, it's not uncommon.
No.
And the removals, whether they're on active duty or in the guard, is really it's breathtaking. And I would say too, we were talking about this before. There's an option for the Air Force. It's Air Force Regulation 51509, paragraph 14.1, 2, and 3, where thank you, where it says that you can remove somebody for no cause. You can just say, literally, I'm making a change. And you don't have to go through all this, destroy somebody and put it out in the news and make them go through this psychological destruction. And what follows on with this as well is you're taken out of your tribe, your community.
That's a great point.
Right? And I found this out with veterans. And the Veterans Organization in Alabama under Admiral Davis is unreal. It was so good when he was there. He suffered the same fate I did with the current administration. This is the patterns and practices we're talking about. And this is something that is maybe not unique in the United States, but definitely to Alabama, patterns and practices. And just watch. There'll be more discussion on this soon in the next week or two. But you're taken out of your tribe. You're pulled away from the people you love, that you fought with and been in battle with. And it's devastating. And it's bad enough when you retire. Like, you're going to see. And I hate to say, I mean, you're going to feel a separation.
Right.
And maybe a little lost for a while. But when you're pulled away from it, like I told you, I retired twice. The first one was better than the second one.
Well, and I mean, this is not the right way to retire. I mean, this is you're being ripped away from your job.
That's right.
For no reason. I mean, there was no reason given. And you're, and now we're going to kind of go back into the time thing. But is there anything else that you wanted to add, Bobby, before we kind of go back into the timeline?
I don't know. Did he mention that there was a gag order at the wing?
I did not.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they issued a gag order, and so nobody was allowed to talk to us. And so we really didn't, get to explain anything. And I think a lot of people just believed the lies, and we felt like we did lose some friends over it. So, yeah, that was also hard.
I learned what ghosting means for real.
Yeah.
We were ghosted by some people for sure.
Do you have some people, though, during this time that stuck by your sides and that
Absolutely.
were just always in your corner no matter what?
For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Families.
yeah, you know who you are, and we love you.
I'm gonna call some people out. My buds from fourth grade. I've been friends with guys from fourth grade. There's 6 of us, and so there will be no storytelling on that ever. But other than that, my Sunday school class. Love you guys.
I love it. I love it. Well, Bobby, thank you very much. I just wanted to have a chance to bring you in and to say that when something like this happens, it's not just happening to the service member, it's happening to their families as well. And you guys really have paid such an ultimate sacrifice. Not only did you serve your nation honorably, now you're showing this cause all the way through and fighting it all the way through. And not very, like we said, not very many people do this.
Yeah.
So thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank you.
So I can continue on with
Yes, so we were back to about the 10. I think it was the 10-month mark.
Yes.
Where you had to finish out that time into the military. So tell me a little bit about where you were in this fight and appealing this decision.
So again, stretched and stretched and stretched out, and then I go to my retirement date, 31 May. We pass it, and I'm like, "What's going to happen now? We don't know." And I'm just kind of sitting there, and I decided I'm going to start my own company. I started to work for somebody else, which was very difficult at the time to do because my focus wasn't there. Right? We had to wait almost another 10 months, and on 13 February of 2024. You know, I just lose the dates here, right?
Well, there's so many dates. I
I
mean,
know.
as I'm reading
It's
this form
2024.
here,
I know
there's,
it.
like,
It's been
so
3
many
years.
different dates. Okay, so in 2024?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2024, for 13 February, the federal.
They ordered Alabama National Guard to reinstate
That's
you
right.
as the 187th Fighter Wing Air Commander.
That's right. So he comes out and says, "You're reinstated." And then I'm thinking, all right, we won. Not so fast, because they didn't do anything. Then they came out and said, "We're going to appeal it." Right. So they put in an appeal, violated multiple provisions of that law, but we let it go and let it cook. And then about a year ago, I put in a retaliation case with the Office of Special Counsel. It's now going to be transferred to the Merit System Protection Board. And I will have to say, political change matters. So the new administration at the federal level has allowed me an avenue to get to the Secretary of the Air Force and appeal directly. I have an attorney that's working directly with that level, like direct. You know them. And so the idea there is to get to the senior level people and say, look what's happening here. Not only was I not reinstated as a civilian, but now that I'm retired, there's a host of laws which allow the Secretary of the Air Force to reinstate me. And then I've missed promotions. I have 3 years of back pay as a GS-15. So do some math on that.
Wow.
It's a lot. Plus benefits, etc. So what I want justice. And I had to decide then, I'm going to either go full-time job or I'm going to go after this. And
That's what I was about to say. Like, there are so many people who would have just said, okay, fine.
Yep.
I'm just going to go get another job. But that's not the path you took.
No.
So what is it you want?
Okay, here's what I want. I want my reputation restored, which is what we're doing right now. Those articles that are out there are false, and now I'm finally have the ability to speak, and I am, and telling the truth. I want justice for the law to be fulfilled so that it sets an example for others who are scared, who are worried, who do not have the ability, perhaps, to fight like I did. I want to show a path. And then, after that, all the back pay, etc., and I want to be reinstated.
You want to do your job.
If they let me go back tomorrow, I will go start up a jet and fly tomorrow as a commander, period.
That's just what's so outstanding about this. Despite the fact that they have done all this to you, and you even have another case that you had to deal with, you still love what you do.
I do.
And you still love being in the Air Force, and you still want to fly fighter jets.
And you know why? Because I think back to Ellis Island and Yankee Stadium in Menham, New Jersey, to my family, and what this country gave to us, and I will never let that be tarnished, ever.
You can't. That's more important. That's the higher.
That's right.
That's the higher purpose to what this is about and why you're here today. And I really can't even begin to explain to you what it means to me that I was the first media outlet that you chose to break this story to. I mean, I think this is a testimony to this new way of media. I mean, Sean Ryan talks about it all the time, that this is the new way that the truth is getting out there, because unfortunately some of the corporate media, they just they're so biased anymore. Not all of them. There's amazing people out there, but sometimes they just don't dig into these stories in the way that I think a podcast can in a long form show. Do you want to see consequences for the people who did this?
I do not want vengeance.
Yeah.
I want justice.
Justice.
I have on the back of my Jeep the tag says 18 Psalm, and it's with a Alabama guard around it. And in that, David is pulled out from the wilderness by God, and God is angry. He's had enough. And he loads up his chariot, and he comes down under thunder and lightning and routs the enemies in front of David. And in the ultimate, what I consider one of the very ultimate tests in the Bible of human spirit, Noah had one of those, Moses had one of those, and David in this case, to rout the enemy and follow up. And it says the purpose was to ensure they cannot rise again. And that is my purpose.
Yeah. And that's why you're going to keep talking about it. That's why after this show, I want to see more of this story out there. We'll be following this very, very closely. I want to thank you so much for taking the opportunity to come on the podcast. We've had a number of people who are making comments in there, including my husband with the sound. So thank you. He's the sound guy. Sean Jovic says, "You are a man of war, Doug. You have my support." And I would definitely say, yeah, vengeance. Admiral Davis says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." I love it.
It is. It's his and not mine.
Yeah.
I want to tell you, too, what you're doing is extremely important. You are unlike anybody I've seen in this space, and you're going to go a long way. So keep going. People, we need you. The veterans need you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, thank you. And I will tell you that these shows are my most popular shows, and I believe that's for a reason. And I believe that this is my purpose, and I believe that I need to keep doing them. And so I'm going to do everything that I can in my power to bring stories like yours to the forefront so that people will know what's going on and that people will step up to fix it. So with that, everyone, I can't believe we kept this to an hour. I wasn't sure we would, but we ended on the hour mark. I want to thank all of you for watching tonight. Thank you so much for joining me in person here in Mississippi. Folks, thank you so much for watching the Stories of Service podcast. I do have, I think, 2 more shows this week, which is I have my regular show on Thursday, and then I am bringing on a years-long fight for a Marine to be a Medal of Honor recipient. I believe he's in his upper 80s now, and they're still fighting to make him a Medal of Honor recipient. So I cannot wait to bring you guys that story. It's been featured on Fox. They're really appealing to the Trump administration to give this man his Medal of Honor before he perishes. So I really can't wait to bring that story this Friday. And then I have an amazing, amazing thought leader and coach who's coming on this coming Thursday as well. So as I always end these calls, I will go on Group Scream. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye now. Oh, and Tim Dickey says I serve.